And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here today, and I'm bringing you a very exciting title. It's exciting because it's Village, and Village is a game currently published by Eggertspiel, but being brought to the United States by Tasty Minstrel Games. And I'm here early enough to show you a preview of the game before it comes to the United States. This is a Euro game for 2 to 4 players, in which players are going to be doing a worker placement style mechanic with a little bit of a twist. They're going to be killing off their workers as the game proceeds, and not only do you kill your workers, but you can earn points for doing so, especially if you plan it out properly. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what comes inside this box. We'll take a look at how the game plays, and then I'll come back here and give you my final thoughts on the package as a whole. Here you can see the components for Village, and this game is going to scale dependent on the number of players you have, and the game includes cards to show you how to scale the game. This is important because each round you're going to put out a certain amount of cubes called influence cubes, and you're going to be using these to take actions, and these little sheets here, they'll tell you exactly how many of each cubes you need. So this is for a 4-player game. You're going to need 5 of each cube, and all of the black cubes put into this bag, and you're going to draw them out and place them around the board as it shows here. So 1 in this blue spot, 2 here, 4 in the pink, 3 in the orange, 4 in the other pink, and so on. So you're going to use this in each game. If you have less players, you're going to use one of the other ones. For example, here's for 2 players, but you get the idea. So to start this game, you're going to have a bag right here, and you're going to put all of the cubes that it says on your sheet into that bag. So we'll do that real quick, and then you're going to draw them out and place them as it says on the board for the sheet that you're using. So for 4 players, we're going to put them out like this. So I'm going to do that real quick. So here you can see these set up for the board after we've set up for the first round. Now each player is going to have a set of player pieces. They're going to look like this. They're going to have little meeples that look like this, and they'll have numbers on them. You're going to have 4 with a number 1, you're going to have several with a number 2, 2 with a number 3, and 2 with a number 4. And these are going to be your workers. The reason they have numbers is because they are generational. So this is the first generation of worker, whereas one with your 2 on it might be a second generation of worker. And this is important because your workers are going to die throughout the game. Each player is also going to have a player board, and you'll see here there's a couple of key characteristics. Notably, these hourglass markers around the side and this bridge in the center. The rest of this is just kind of informational. You can hold 5 bags of grain, and it tells you some stuff that you can do during the game, but these time spots are important. And players are going to have a token that they place on their board, and as they take certain actions, it's going to require time. And they're going to move this around the board until they cross over this bridge. And anytime you cross over the bridge, you're going to have to kill one of your workers of the oldest generation. Meaning that the 1s would be first because they're the oldest, 2s later, 3s after that, and then 4s. Now on a round, players are going to take turns taking actions, either by using their workers or by taking a cube from this board and doing something else that doesn't involve a worker. But anytime you take an action, you are going to have to take a cube from one of these spots on the board. And the spots all do different things. So let's go over a couple of them really quickly. This spot right here, the pink one, lets you take grain. Grain is a resource to be used during the game. You would take one of these cubes, which will be commodities you can use later, and you would add it to your player board, and you would be able to take this action. Taking grain does not require a worker, but if you look at your player board, it tells you how you get grain. So for example, if you have any workers on your farm, you will get 2 grain. However, if you happen to have a worker, a cart, or a plow and a horse, you're going to get 3 grain. If you have a worker, a plow, and an ox, you're going to get 4. Great, so that's how you take that action. The next action down here is going to be kind of a city hall type of area. You'll take one of these cubes, just as before, put it on your own player board, and you'll get to put one of your workers, you're going to start with only level 1 workers, on this area. But you have to pay 1 time and either a scroll, which is a different type of commodity, or 2 green cubes. Putting your guy here will get you the start player turn marker for the next round, or if you get him further along the track, which you can do on subsequent turns, you can get 2 cubes of any color, any one of these little resources you want, or you can pay a victory point for the 3 coins. Additionally, having workers on these spots at the end of the game is going to give you victory points noted on the board. Now, it's important to note that once you have a worker on a spot, he won't come home on his own. You can either take an action to bring him home, or he will stay on the board and he will die in his position. Dying in specific positions, once your marker crosses over that bridge on the time spot, is going to take the worker off of the board, and you get to choose one of your workers of the oldest generation. In this case, 1. you would take that worker and you would put him in the appropriate spot on the Chronicle, the Village Chronicle, which is a book remembering people who worked at certain jobs, but only the first people who worked at those jobs, or the first couple of people. You'll see that this building here has a red emblem on it, and people who die while in service in this area are going to go onto the red spot on the Village Chronicle. As you have people fill up in here, you're going to get points at the end of the game. So you'll see if you have 3 of your workers on this book at the end of the game, you get 4 points, 4 gives you 7, and 5 gives you 12. Now, so you have an idea of trying to get your workers in there. The next action is going to be to take one of these cubes and to either add a family member from your reserve, from your workers you don't yet have. For example, you would be able to take a 2 worker since you start with all of your 1s, or after you got your 2s, you could take a 3 worker. Or you can go and remove one of your workers from the board that's already in a spot. So let's say you didn't want this guy in this building anymore because maybe all of these spots on the board were filled up in the Village Chronicle for red. You would pull him off and bring him back to your farm. If the spots had filled up and he had died in here, so these 2 spots were already full, he would go to an unmarked grave, getting you no points for that worker at the end of the game. The next spot over here is the church, and taking a cube from the church is going to let you do one thing. You can take a worker from your family board or from your farm, and you'll add him to this black bag, which is going to be used after the round is over in order to get guys into the church who can score victory points at the end of the game and will score victory points each round. Taking a cube from this yellow area over here is going to let you basically trade in cubes for goods or send workers to be trained in order to get goods. So if you take one of these cubes and add it to your farm, you're going to be able to either take a guy and place it on here. For example, it says pay 2 time, put a worker here, and then pay another 2 time, and you can get a scroll. And you would take one of these. Alternatively, you could simply just turn in a pink cube to get a scroll. There are other spots. For example, this one over here is actually pay 3 time and place a worker, pay 3 more time and get either a horse or a ox, or you can just pay 3 grain, which you could go over here with the grain action in order to do that. The other ones are to get a wagon and to get a plow, and then a final building which allows you to trade in 2 grain and 2 time in order to get 2 money. Now, you have to try and balance your best to use the cubes that are available with also placing your workers to try and get them to die and put them on the Village Chronicle for yellow. The last 2 spots are green and blue. The blue spot is going to be called a market day spot, and when somebody takes this cube, you'll notice the only cube there, and we'll always only have 1 cube there each round. When someone takes this, they are able to sell something to one of these customers on the board. You can see here, a customer looks something like this. It has a victory point amount, and then it has what the customer wants, in this case 3 grain. The first person, or the person to take this action, is going to be able to sell to one of these people for free, meaning they only have to have the goods. But then each player in turn order is able to sell to any of the other 4 that would be remaining if they want to. However, it's going to cost them 1 green cube and 1 time in order to do so. And you can keep going around the table until everyone passes on selling, and then the market day would end for that turn. The final spot is the travel, and also brings up another good point. There are only black cubes here, and black cubes are not influence cubes. These are actually bad for you. They're something akin to plague. And when you take one of these cubes, instead of getting a resource that you add to your board and accumulate, you're going to return it to the supply. And this is going to automatically give you 2 time in aging. So if you had your thing on your board, you would automatically age 2 time for having picked up that black cube, which you will have to do eventually. Now this last spot allows you to travel, and traveling is going to be putting your meeples on the board and traveling to these different spots on this city. When you do so, you're going to have to you're going to have to accumulate 2 time, turn in a wagon, and then the cubes that are in between the 2 destinations that you're trying to go between. And when you do so, you'll place one of your markers on the spot, get the reward, which in this case is 3 victory points, and leave your meeple there. That meeple can continue to travel until he's forced to die, if he's forced to die, and then he would go down to the green area. The brown and purple areas are the church and your own individual farm, respectively. So if you have somebody die from your farm, he goes to this area. The game is going to continue in this manner through a whole round until all of these cubes have been taken. Once all of the cubes have been taken, you're going to do a church round. And as I mentioned, you'll be having people put into this bag during the game by taking the church action, either spending brown cubes or 3 times. At this point, you'll be able to actually pay to get your guys out of the bag, which is sometimes a good idea if you want to have the most influence in the church. And you would pay 1 money per guy to get them out of the bag and put them into the church. However, if you decide not to pay money, you're going to draw 4 guys randomly out of this bag. I say randomly because it comes with black guys in the bag. These are the monks that come in the bag. And you would have these in the bag along with your own people in order to make it a little more random. So you would draw 4 out. and you'd see if you got your guy. And in this case, yellow placed a guy in, and their guy got drawn out. He would stay in the church on the 2 victory point spot. At this point, you can trade in grain in order to advance him further along the spots. So if you paid 3 grain, you could get him all the way up here to the 4 victory point spot, but he may end up dying as he's a level 1 guy. So it's often best to get some of your higher aged guys, your younger guys, which are the higher numbers, up into these important spots in the church or the civil hall, or traveling around in this travel area in order to get points at the end of the game. At the end of the game, you're going to score points for your presence in the Village Chronicle, your presence in the church, your presence in the Civil Hall, your presence in this village, the most discs you have here. If you have 6 discs, you can earn up to 18 points, and you're going to get points for all of your customers that you have served. In addition, you'll get some extra points for money left over, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game, which will be when either this Village Chronicle fills up or the unmarked graves are full because certain spots weren't open for someone who died in the village. When either of these 2 spots is full, the game will end and the person with the most points is the winner. So there you have the gameplay of Village. Now this is a game that I'm actually very excited about, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. One, I got to it early, and that's always great, but 2, it's a good game. The game, while maintaining some familiar feelings, you take cubes, you place workers, has some very interesting dynamics to it insofar as you're going to want to place your young workers, or your oldest workers, sorry, your first generation workers, on the board in positions where you would like them to die in order to get them into the Village Chronicle to earn points. At the same time, there are some clever ways to manipulate your workers, sometimes placing them into the church bag right before you kill someone, so that you can kill a different worker than the one that you just placed. So maybe you have one level 1 worker left, you throw him in the church bag, and then you can kill a level 2 worker who's somewhere else in an area where you want to get someone into the Chronicle. Now the game is going to fall very much to the way that players play. There's a lot of variation in the length of the game, particularly because one player could be rushing the end of the game by killing off their workers very quickly, taking a lot of actions that force the advancement of time so that they get their workers onto the Village Chronicle. If that happens, everybody is going to either have to follow suit and do the same thing, or hope that they can earn enough points through selling things, placing their guys on the traveling area, getting their guys in the church, in order to counteract the amount of points that is going to be won by the person who manages to kill all those people and get them into the Village Chronicle. So you can either have a game that ends very quickly with a very low score, or you can have a little bit longer game if players delay the killing of their workers, trying to get higher scores, and everybody follows suit in that manner. So, the game varies very much with individual player style. Either way, it's a great game, one that I enjoy immensely, and one that I suggest you check out from Tasty Minstrel once they bring it to the United States.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.